Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Fixing Diablo 2. Now, I do always want to strongly stress this at the beginning of each video, as I don't think Diablo 2 is broken. I do, however, feel like there are a couple lost puppies that are out in the snow, and I'd like to bring them back into the, into the pen so that they can be warm and get some treats. Now, the one that we're talking about today is Defiance. Defiance is one of those abilities that I feel like is a lost puppy out in the snow and needs to be addressed. Why is Defiance such a bad aura? And, well, what can we do to fix it? And this is what we're going to cover today. First off, let's go over the pros and the cons of this particular ability. So first off, Defiance, what are the pros? It enhances your defense. What does defense do? Well, defense allows you to block damage completely. It's not considered a block or a faster hit recovery attempt. It is basically just a complete and utter negation of a physical damage hit. So if I were to shoot, say, an arrow at you, and I do not pass the defense check, well then I am immediately and utterly defeated because my hit does not hit you. In fact, you could basically rename defense to evasion, and evasion would probably be a more accurate name for it. Speaking of evading, Mr. Dusty Buns is evading the camera today by taking a nap in his little hole. Isn't that right, Mr. Dusty? So basically, when it comes to defense, it only has one purpose. Stop a melee or ranged attack, a physical damage attack, from actually hitting you. Now, the problem with this is that, well, a lot of characters just don't really have a lot of defense in general, and so it basically sometimes doesn't do anything. And this brings me to my cons. So my cons are, number one, it takes the place of a more effective or better aura. And this is, there's tons of better auras within Diablo 2. And if I say curse by mistake, please forgive me. I keep doing that all the time. I don't know why I keep dropping curse instead of aura into the conversation. But like fanaticism, concentration, blessed aim, might, frickin' holy fire, holy freeze, holy shock. Heck, even thorns is better than defiance in a lot of situations. Conviction, I wouldn't say sanctuary is better, but sometimes. It actually does provide a little bit of offensive capability. It is an aura that I want to touch on in another video. Even resist fire, resist cold, resist lightning, salvation, redemption, vigor, meditation, cleansing. I mean, heck, all of these are better. Every single one of these are better than Defiance, in my opinion. And Defiance only has one purpose, which is to enhance your defense, right? The other issue with Defiance is it only enhances the base defense instead of like with modifiers. So what I mean by that is, like, well, it says it gives you 1,000, right? Well, 1,000 is not really a lot. But if I put Defiance on, I get, a nice toasty little 2,300, which is still pretty terrible. If I use my Holy Shield, I get 6,750. This is because the calculation essentially makes it so that we have the bonus to our base, not the bonus to our actual defense. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you take 1,000 and you add 130%, which is the amount of Defiance, you get 2,300. All right. And then if you take 1,000 and you add the amount from Holy Shield, which is 445%, plus 445%, you get 5,450. We're going to subtract the original base 1,000, right? 445, and then we add our 2,300, so plus 2,300. 6,750, exactly, right? However, if we took our 5,450 and we added the 130% directly to it, we would add some pretty crazy amounts. What did I do? That doesn't seem right. 5,450. 130%. Yeah, it gets kind of crazy when you do that. So as you can see, because Defiance only affects your base defense, not your actual total defense, it doesn't really do as much as it states either. It enhances only defense. This is a con because, well, defense only protects you against physical damage, right? Only physical damage, melee, and physical damage ranged hits. It doesn't protect you against spells. It doesn't protect you against fire, lightning, ice. It doesn't protect you against physical damage spells like tornado, which is is actually really silly. It's a big con because, well, it's only doing one thing, and that one thing is so finite in the grand scheme of things. As you can see here, does nothing versus spells, so that kind of follows along with con number 2. But it does nothing versus any spells within the game. Number 4, if your defense isn't high enough, it does nothing, right? So if you don't actually have enough defense to actually make Defiance be useful, so even if you do have Defiance on you, if it's only giving you like up to 2,000 defense or something like that, there is a limit where if you don't have enough defense, you just it just doesn't work. Certain characters like the Assassin are really bad with this. They have basically no defense, and because they have no defense, they get hit all the time by everything. And even with Defiance, these characters still get hit all the time by everything. It's a defensive aura. And and it's actually a defensive aura that says it's a defensive aura. But this is actually a con because, well, most people prefer offensive auras to defensive auras, right? So it's just kind of a thing. Everybody prefers to have a offensive aura. That's why the offensive tree is so powerful and such a good tree on the Paladin tree. And pretty much everything in this tree is useful, right? I mean, Conviction Aura is amazing. Fanaticism is amazing. You can build Holy Shock, Holy Freeze, and Holy Fire Paladins. Thorns is very useful, if not, like, it's not really something that you like to put on your Paladin specifically, but it's a great aura that everybody likes to use, like on summoning characters. You can utilize it to kill Diablo at early levels. Like, there's a bunch of different uses for Thorns. It's offensive. Everything on this is offensive. Even Sanctuary probably still edges out over Defiance because it's actually useful. Meanwhile, defensive auras tend to be less useful and less used as main auras. On this entire tree, there's probably not a single aura on this tree that Paladins actually use 100% full time. They're situational, right? If I'm going up against a monster that has lots of fire damage, resist fire. If I'm going up against a monster that has lots of lightning damage, like a gloam or something like that, resist lightning, etc., right? If I need tons of extra resistances, salvation. If I want to restore my health and mana, redemption. If I want to have, massive regeneration of mana, meditation, cleansing, etc., right? But Defiance, have you ever, like, actually put Defiance on when you were in a physical situation? Like, been like, oh man, these monsters are whooping my butt, I could really use some extra defense, and then throw Defiance aura on to see if you can get it to, save your life? Not really. You know why? Because you'd have to give up all your offensive capability to do it. On top of that, even the mercenaries tend to be, the Defiance mercenary tends to be one of the least picked, because there's offensive choices like Might and Blessed Aim. There's really good defensive choices like Holy Freeze, which honestly put Defiance to shame. I mean, in general, when it comes to defensive auras, I think Defiance has basically failed to do the one thing that it was supposed to do, which was make you want to put it on in a case of physical damage reduction, right? So you want to reduce the amount of physical damage coming in, well, then I put Defiance aura on to do that. I think in the same way that Resist Fire makes you want to put it on when you're fighting, like, say, Travancore Council with Hydras, or when Resist Lightning makes you want to put it on when you're fighting Gloams, I think that Defiance Aura should make you want to put it on when you're fighting, say, a pack of Death Lords. And how do we do this? Well, I think the easiest way to do this is to give it the same treatment as Resist Fire, Resist Cold, and Resist Lightning. What are these doing? They're increasing the resistance to that particular element, right? And then they're also giving you a small maximum bonus. How about we just do the same exact thing here? So give this a small amount of increased physical damage reduction. And we could go over to, say, an Assassin, and we could take a look at this. So I always like to pull up actual real examples within the game to talk about this. And so with Fade is an assassin skill, and assassins that have Fade get a 1% increase in physical damage reduction per point that they put into Fade. Now, I don't recommend 1% because, in my personal opinion, Fade is a single use ability to yourself, and I don't really think that having that on yourself is as big of a deal as having it on everybody within the group. All right, so Defiance affects everybody, and so does Resist Lightning, Resist Fire, Resist Cold. Right, they affect everybody, including the passive increase to your maximum resistance. Well, Fade, as it goes up, gets 1% per level. As you can see, it's level 12, 12% physical damage reduction. Right, gets 1% per level up to the maximum of whatever level you get it up to, which is 30%. So here's what I'm thinking. When it comes to Defiance, what we could do is we could give it a physical damage reduction of, say, the same amount that we have on Resist Cold, Resist Fire, and Resist Lightning, which is 0.5%. So 0.5% would be the amount that it would give you to everyone, because of course physical damage reduction is more powerful than others. And then on top of that, it would give a passive to the Paladin for using it. So in this particular case, let's pull up a notepad here real quick. So if I was let's say I had level 20 Defiance Aura, that would be the equivalent of, let's see here, so 0.5 per level, so it would be like 10% additional physical damage reduction. And then to the Paladin himself, if he's actually using it, or to your mercenary, if he's actually using it, he would get a passive bonus to himself of 0.25, which would be an additional 5% essentially for him, which would be a total of 15% physical damage reduction, like, to himself. Another way that we could potentially approach it is to allow Defiance to increase the physical damage reduction cap. So right now, the physical damage reduction is capped at 50%. If you have physical damage reduction. So if you have any physical damage reduction at all coming from any source, you can only go as high as 50%. And we could have it the same way as this. As you can see, like Resist Fire, Resist Cold, and Resist Lightning give you a maximum lightning resistance instead of just resistance itself, right? So in this particular case, they're increasing your maximum above 75% when you have these skills active. And I mean, we could maybe put in a small increase to the maximum in there as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be much. It could be like a 5% flat or something, bringing you from 50 to 55%, like, total possible. I mean, the general idea here is to make Defiance into exactly what it's trying to be, which is something that defends you against physical damage, right? It's supposed to defend you against melee attacks, it's supposed to defend you against ranged attacks, and it's also supposed to defend you against physical damage, because the majority of melee and ranged attacks are physical. And in this way, it would at least achieve that goal and become a lot more useful. It would become a lot more useful as a mercenary. People would be more interested to get Exile, because Exile has Defiance on it. In general, you wouldn't be so upset when somebody has a Defiance or a Merc within the group, because at least they'd be providing a little bit of physical damage reduction, which certainly would be terrible. And because it's focusing on one particular element, it's not really going to be all that overpowered. I think that's kind of the important thing here. We already have a item in the game which gives Resist Fire, which is the Flickering Flame. We already have an item in the game that gives Defiance, which is the Exile Shield. And on top of that, we can also get Defiance from the Mercenary, Act 2 Mercenary. But to use the Act 2 Mercenary, we'd have to give up other, like maybe better curses, or better auras, sorry. I keep saying curses. And in general, if you were in an elemental, situation, you're still going to use these. If you're, trying to regenerate your mana, you're still going to use these. If you're trying to remove a poison, you're still going to use these. And it would just make Defiance into exactly what it was always supposed to be, which is something that is supposed to reduce the physical damage that you're taking. And I think the most important thing with Defiance is that it doesn't achieve its goal with just raw defense. The amount of defense that it gives isn't really a massive amount, because the base defense of pretty much every character is so low that it's absolutely terrible. That's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about this, fixing Defiance. I think it's a pretty good idea to just give Defiance more defensive capability in the vein that it was originally designed for. And maybe Mr. Dusty Buns wants to say goodbye. He's in there, just warm as a snug and a bug and a rug in there. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.